Hello, this is Roxana for Avid Diva, and sorry about the mess, but I'm just sitting here in my little corner, where I have all my goodies, my books, my magazines, and whatnot, and I'm trying to figure out how to hold this so I don't lose it, because this is a rant video. So, let's start. Today the news have been yesterday, the news were interesting, and because of the weekend that this is, there's a lot of stuff online, especially on social media, about people being completely outraged about different things. And I'm going to start with the easy ones, and I'm going to move to the harder ones little by little. So let's start with the Wells Fargo situation. You mean to tell me that you guys are surprised that 5,300 employees decided that it was more important for them to keep their jobs and do whatever they needed to do, because we as shareholders don't want to see any negative quarters? CEOs want to make their millions. Managers want to make their incentives. But we're supposed to be surprised that 5,300 people cheated, defrauded, and basically stole the identities of customers at the tune of, I can't remember if it was 2 million accounts or whatever. Okay. And by the way, don't think for a second Wells Fargo is the only one. I'm pretty sure we're going to see other banks go through this as well. I'm just going to be very surprised if we don't. And I'm going to tell you why. This is true for banking, and it's true for retail. And it's one of the main reasons why, even though I had a lot of fun working retail, I would never work retail again. You see, there was a time when you used to go to a bank or a store or whatever, and you were the most important thing to these people. And they would keep you for 20 years as a customer, and you would buy all the time. And they actually thought about the long-term effects of having you as a customer, and they treated you very well. That doesn't exist anymore. For some reason, we seem to be under the delusion that the short term is the most important thing, and money is the most important thing, and so let's get everything we can out of the customer instead of taking care of the customer. Perfect example. I don't know if you remember this because you might be too young, but 30 years ago, you didn't pay a lot of fees for taking your own money out of an ATM machine. In fact, if it was there were networks for different banks. If you were on the network where your bank was, you didn't even pay a fee at all month long. Now you're lucky if your own bank doesn't charge you a fee after the third time you take money out of your bank. We used to not have fees for, the fee for return check was like $10, $15. It's $13 now. $30 when sometimes it's their fault that they messed up. And as we can tell by the Wells Fargo situation, it happens a lot. So you have to think about it this way. You also have to think about it in the following manner. This whole thing started in 2011. I don't know if you remember your situation in 2011, but I do, because I had been here for 2 years, and I had just gotten my first quote-unquote full-time job. And I have an associate's degree in fashion merchandising, a bachelor's in marketing, and I was on 12 credits of my master's in human resources, and I was selling beds in a retail store. And that's the only job I could find after 2 years of sitting in my apartment, I think I was filling out 50 applications a week, something like that. And I would go to places to show my face so they would know. No, you have to go online. Everything was online, and everything is online nowadays. They give you this stupid test that we're not even going to go into the test, because it cracks me up when they give you all this test to prove if you can do the job, and yet they spend 8 weeks training you on how to do the job after, because that makes sense. So the tests are irrelevant. They give you an interview based on the psychological analysis, and what they don't understand is that the people that are smart enough or don't care about where they work, they just want a job, are going to figure out what your psychological standards are, and you're just going to spew out of their mouth whatever you want to hear. And then they're surprised when half of the people they hire are not worth it. So let's go back to the story about Wells Fargo and the banks and the stores. This is the hierarchy of how this works. And I'm going to use the example of a retail store. You have an employee, and that employee is told that they have to get 3 credit card applications that day. Now, this person has 3 mouths to feed back home. It's making probably $9 or $10 an hour, if that much. Depends on probably food stamps because they're the only ones that could find a job. Even though they have a college education, they're working in a store either because they like it or because that's the only job they could find. And you're making them get 3 credit cards a day. And by the way, if they don't get them, they either get their hours docked or they simply get fired. Because for some reason we have made credit cards a standard that is one of the standards of your performance in order for you to keep your job. I don't understand that either, but that's another story for another day. So then you make force this person to shove applications down people's throats. And going back to the example of the store, the person sees 8 people that day. 4 of them already have the credit card. 2 of them told the person that they are through bankruptcy, and the standard answer is, oh, you never know, let's go check. Because most stores will give you a credit card even though you have bad credit. Let's be honest. That's how I have a fan of credit cards in my pocket. So you go ahead, you fill out the application for those 2 people. But you need 3, remember? And then the next 2 people, one of them doesn't want the credit card, and it's not even you don't even bother because they're in a bad mood. The last person that you see in the day places an order that is supposed to get to their home, and then you find yourself in a position where you have 2 choices. You can take all the information and process the order later, and in the process, see if they get a credit card, which they did not approve, but you're doing everything to get it. Or you're an honest person, you get all their information, you go ahead and process the order, and you get in trouble because you only got 2 credit cards that day. That's what happens in America today. Now, not only that, let's add to that how this works, because I said hierarchy. The employee gets to keep his job. That's his reward. The manager gets an incentive because their employees are getting credit cards. The supervisor for the managers gets an incentive. The VP gets an incentive. And the CEO gets a bonus because they reach the standards for the year. So I have a question for you. Now that we punished the 5,300 employees, are we also going to punish the managers and the VPs and the CEO and even the shareholders and ask them to give back the money in fees and everything else that they paid these people in incentives for opening accounts that are not valid? And just like that, if you go through everything that's going on in the planet right now, because by the way, the United States is not unique. If you go through the entire planet and figure this out, you're going to find out there's a lot of stuff that you're like, oh my God, what the heck? For example, this weekend is September 11th weekend. On the one hand, we have idiots making September 11th sales because I guess since we do Labor Day sales and Memorial Day sales, might as well have September 11th sales. Not only is it tacky, but it's too soon. But some idiot in some store in Texas decided to make 2 stacks of mattresses so that they would look like the Twin Towers, and then have 2 idiots run into the 2 towers of mattresses and topple them. Not only is it tacky, it's bad taste, it's a bad idea, and it's just too soon. But it brings another point of how ironic and weird we humans are. Because we absolutely celebrate every disaster, and then we're surprised when all these terrorists keep doing these things. Think about it for a second. Every time we have a situation, the Boston Marathon bombing, the McVeigh, I forgot what's Oklahoma City bombing, Charles Manson. Every time we have one of these idiots do something stupid, we give them so much publicity and we make such a big deal out of it and then we're surprised when people keep doing it. Why? Let's face it, it's been 15 years since the Twin Towers were destroyed. And more important than that, there was a lot of people that died that day. And I remember like if it was yesterday how bad it was, because I have family in New York. And I understand for the people that have family members and everything, that they do memorials that day, I understand that perfectly. But we keep making hours and hours and hours of tributes and films and documentaries and stories, and then the conspiracy theories and everything else. And what we're doing is we're giving terrorists more reasons to keep doing what they're doing because they get all the publicity. And that's not just the United States. I mean, let's look at the history. We have Pompeii. Pompeii was a natural disaster. But guess what? We're still talking about it. The London Jack the Ripper. Jack the Ripper is still famous. How long ago did Jack the Ripper happen? And we're still trying to figure out who Jack the Ripper was. Really? We only concentrate on the bad things. Hitler. Hitler killed thousands, if not millions of people. Let's start with the fact that half of the population thinks it was made up, because for some reason people don't seem to believe in reality anymore. But take the people that actually believe it happened and the people that lived through it. We're still harping on Hitler. Forget about the survivors. Let's put it this way, and this is what I'm trying to say. I would rather have all the people that survived and did something amazing with their lives. I want those to be the famous people. I don't want the Hitlers of the world and the terrorists to win. So no, I'm not saying to be disrespectful to those who passed or to be disrespectful to the things that happened. What I'm saying is that we need to stop giving the floor to the bad guys and start giving the floor to the good guys and the good things that happen in the planet. The last one that I'm going to talk about, and keep in mind that this is what I've been seeing on the feed today and on social media, is, if we had prayers in schools and if we had the allegiance, the Pledge of Allegiance in schools, we wouldn't have the society that we have now. I'm wondering if we didn't have such an expensive situation and such a crazy situation where people don't get paid enough to make ends meet. If having one parent will go to work, and by the way, I don't care which one of the parents stays home, but if we had a situation when one parent stayed home and the other parent went to work, and then that way one of the parents could stay home with their kids and teach them right from wrong and all this other stuff, if that wouldn't be more important than saying a prayer or pledging allegiance. But that's the society that we live in. We live in a society, to give you a perfect example, where in my house there's 4 people. My mom, who has Alzheimer's, my daughter, who's 24, my husband, and myself. The 3 people that don't have Alzheimer's in this house have to work so that all 4 of us can live where we live. I live in an apartment. I don't have a house. It's a 3-bedroom apartment because obviously my mom needs her space, my daughter needs her space, and my husband and I have a room. But it's not a gigantic apartment by any stretch of the imagination. But we pay an arm and a leg to make sure that we live in a safe place and we live in a nice place so that we can give my mother, and we live on the bottom floor so my mother doesn't have to go up the stairs. And, why should that be? Why shouldn't it be that my husband could go to work and my daughter and I could take care of my mom until whatever happens? It's just, that's what I don't understand. And excuse me because I have things coming up on my screen. We put too much emphasis on religion and on things that really have no meaning to some people, because let's be honest, some people don't care about the flag. And since we're talking about the flag, this is what I have to say about the flag. I find it amusing that people are getting so revolted and so upset about somebody deciding to make a statement by not putting their hands on their chest or whatever. We make bathing suits and shorts out of the flag. And then we proceed to put our little behinds and fart on the flag. We don't have a law that protects the flag so we can burn the flag, because according to some people, freedom of expression includes the flag. But we're going to get mad at somebody that's trying to make a statement, which, by the way, is the reason why all these people go and fight wars and everything, so that we all have the right to make the statement. But then we get mad because the person is making the statement, even though none of us respect the flag. What? I don't get it. Anyway, the bottom line is this, and this is why I find people amusing, and why people studying how people behave and what they do is the most interesting thing I'll ever probably look at in my entire life. Apart from studying myself so I can better myself, the most amusing thing to me is studying people. Sitting somewhere and studying people is it's amazing. But we have respect for nobody. And we don't respect ourselves. Let's start there. We don't respect ourselves. I start with me. I am fat as hell. I am 120 pounds overweight right now. Okay? So, obviously I don't respect myself. We don't respect ourselves as people. We don't love ourselves enough. So then, we don't love anybody else. Because if we loved other people, we wouldn't have racism. We wouldn't have homophobia. We wouldn't have all this ridiculous banter about hating other people. We would understand that we all have skeleton, bones, skin, and we all bleed the same color. And by the way, if you stab me and you stab an African American person and a white person, all three of us are going to get the exact same thing if you stab us in the exact same manner in the exact same place. Because none of us is better than anybody else. We're all the same. But yet, we don't love ourselves. We don't love each other. And then we expect the whole planet to love everybody else and be good and do the right thing. Really? By the way, that is the basis of the Libertarian Party. They believe that people would self-regulate. That is the main precept of them when it started. I don't know if it's still that way. Really? You could govern yourself and I should govern myself? Really? This is the country that is fighting over the right to have a gun, where half of the people want a gun and half of the people don't want people to have a gun. And we cannot even respect each other enough not to basically put respect by having a gun in your face. But we're going to self-regulate. Guys, it all starts with us. We have to love ourselves enough to know that this is not okay. For example, get help or start walking or start doing something to take care of yourself. Then when you look at your neighbor, even if they infuriate you, like right now I have neighbors that trample all over the floor at all hours of the day and night. Obviously they don't know how much noise they're making, because I don't think if they knew how much noise they're making, they would be making that noise. But they do. And I could get mad at them and go over there and yell at them and whatever. I'm not, because I used to live on the second floor, and I know sometimes, even though they do it every day, sometimes you just walk too hard and it makes a sound downstairs. We need to start loving people, loving ourselves first, loving people. And it doesn't really matter if you believe in God or not. We need to stop being a little bit more respectful of everybody else. We have an election coming, and I'm not going to use offensive language, but it's a disaster. It's a disaster, not necessarily because of the politicians involved, but because we didn't care enough to go to the booth to vote. And now we're complaining about the candidates we have. It starts with each one of us. So please, I'm begging you, start loving yourself. I'm going to start loving myself. Well, actually, I started loving myself this week, and I started taking better care of what I eat, and I started walking again. And hopefully in a few months I won't be 120 pounds overweight. But we have to start with ourselves, take care of ourselves, love ourselves, and we need to stop being so greedy. I mean, if we all did what we were supposed to do, we would have all the money we need. We wouldn't have to be asking people to fill out credit cards like crazy people, because people would willingly have good credit and ask for credit cards. And by the way, credit cards are not the end all be all of the planet. We wouldn't need people to basically steal other people's identities just to make ends meet so that they can put food on the table. Because I bet you money, if you ask half of the 5,000 people that just got fired, They're going to tell you that somebody told them to do something and they just did it. And now they're sorry that they actually followed blindly. Because it happens in every job everywhere. They're not the first. And I'm telling you, we're going to find other banks that do it and probably some retail stores that do it too. Because if it would have been we caught 2 or 3 people doing this, then I would understand. But when you have 5,300 people that got fired for this disaster, that means that it was the natural modus operandi of whatever. And that also means that somewhere somebody told somebody else, and there's probably more banks doing this. So please, people, start loving yourselves and respecting yourselves enough to say no, to know when to say no, to know when to bring it to the attention of somebody. Look, if your manager's making you do something illegal, tell the person above them. And make sure you have all your receipts so that if they fire you, you can sue them and prove that the reason why you got sued, even though they told you it was because of performance or whatever, it was because you had morals and you had standards. If we all love ourselves enough, none of this would be happening. And this is the end of my rant for today. I know I have been gone for a while, but today I just had to rant. I just had to say it. Tell me what you think in the comments below, and thank you for watching. Bye.